Welcome to Marketing People Love. My name is Jacques Spitzer, and today I have a mentee of mine who I learn just as much from. His name is Tarun, and he runs Arcady Media. And they do retention work for some of the fastest growing brands in the direct to consumer space. And we're going to cover everything from pop ups and intro flows, how to approach your email list so that you're not what I call abusing the list, how to spot yellow, red, and green flags when you're looking at your account, how to approach the all important Black Friday, Cyber Monday event. And we talk a little bit about Q5. And something that he has said that will haunt me forever is the mistake that brands make by wishing people a happy Hanukkah or a Merry Christmas or a Happy New Year, and how it can tank all of your hard work. This is one of those episodes where I am asking questions from a pretty selfish standpoint. I want this information to hand to the brands that we collaborate and work with to see them be as successful as possible. So buckle up. You're going to absolutely love learning from Tarun. Tarun, welcome to Marketing People Love. Today we have
Awesome.
Tarun. Tarun, welcome to Marketing People Love.
Thanks, Shock. I'm so excited to be here. I think I've listened to a lot of podcast episodes. My favorite being the one with the person from
Oh, yeah.
ClickUp.
I have been seeing and witnessing firsthand what is possible with retention. And when you think about retention, it is a lot of pieces and things, but I like to boil it down to these are customers, or I should say, even potential customers. So there are people that have come into your
hmm
list, email, SMS, and they either have already purchased from you or they haven't purchased from you yet. And it's an opportunity
Yeah.
to build a relationship. And I want to start this by giving a visual story. And then I want you to tell me, based on your experience, how accurate it is. I always think about our job a lot of times is to build demand and to build new customers, new customer acquisition. That's always been, it's like, it is a lifeblood. Figure out how to develop a ongoing relationship with their audiences where they have people buying multiple times. They have people referring them. They have people waiting for their new product launches and their drops and all that. Like, they develop a true relationship. And so I think about this man or woman standing in a field, picking lemons out of a tree, and then just squeezing them with their hand and then moving on, and then just feverishly always having to get another lemon. And someone can come along and see all these lemons on the ground and put them over a juicer and get probably 30 to 40% more of the juice out of each of those lemons. And I feel like so often we're all scrambling for
100%.
the next pick, the next new customer, and we almost lose sight of the fact that we're sitting on so much juice inside of our own company. I would be curious to hear, like, is that how you have thought about and approach retention? Does that analogy work in your world? Like, how
Yeah.
do you see it?
No, that rings so many bells. I think that's so accurate, right? Like I think we've worked with businesses big and small, and that's why we actually got into retention marketing in the first place. Is just no matter what business it was, whether it's a business that's just starting out or a company that has massive scale, they always sort of focus on how do I get the next customer instead of just getting the customer back, right? And what's really interesting, I think, about just retention marketing specifically on the email and SMS side, that last bit of lemon is also a lot of your relationship with customers, right? I think the best way to classify it is just as the most intimate marketing channel because you get to communicate with them directly. But I completely agree. I think there's always so much more juice to squeeze out of the lemon with every brand we've seen, whether it's small or whether
So
it's super
let's start
large.
with the I think the first part of the lemon tree in this analogy. We won't make the whole episode about the lemons. We
Okay.
can if we want. I think about. I think a lot of people think like, oh yeah, once they're on my list, that's when it starts. But in my conversations with you, you have
hmm
done some things with the pop up on the site that
hmm
have fundamentally changed how people acquire people on their list, right? People are coming to your site and they're already like
Yeah.
gone into the ether unless they've taken action. So, what are you all thinking about when it comes to literally just the acquisition of that information pre-purchase? Like, what do you see working and what do you see not working?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something there, right? Because we focus on the pop up so much since it determines everything that happens after. And so, even if I set up and optimize absolutely everything, if I'm able to get 5 times more people in my pop-up, I get 5 times the amount of customers going down every single automation, receiving every single campaign. And so pop-ups completely underrated because a single percentile can change the results dramatically. And with pop-ups, it's super interesting, right? Like I think with rising acquisition costs, something to really continue to focus on is just the ability to continue to like capture customers and then educate them along the way, right? There's so many advertisers and there's so much noise in digital marketing now, where people, as soon as they search one thing up, they're getting 5 different results for it and multiple different advertisers trying to get that dollar. Even if you get the email without getting the purchase, you're able to educate them on, why your brand, what, is your brand about? What's the mission? Why should they relate to you more than the other brands that are selling the same product, right? And it really allows you to get that competitive leg if you're able to continue to optimize that pop-up, because you just get the chance to educate so many more customers on who you are and what you do, and they just give you a lot more time of day than, let's say advertising, where you have to show up wherever they are and you're sort of disrupting whatever they're doing, whether they're scrolling on Instagram or on Facebook. Whereas with emails, it's very intentional, right? They're opening it for you, and you have that shot to really educate them on everything. And so when it comes to the pop-ups, I think that's something that, there's a lot of benefit in continuing to optimize that, just because you can continue to grow the list. And there's so many different tactics. Like I think aside from seeing or optimizing it by changing the behavior of when it comes up, up on the screen, or changing the text or the offer, there's also tools like anonymous identity resolution, where a lot of softwares like Blackcrow or retention.com or Elevar will be able to capture customer information and then get them to sign up as well.
Everyone has a different level of sophistication with their pop-ups and their testing they've gone into them.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about some brands right now that are pretty early on, and like maybe we did like an A/B test and then sort of like set it and forget it. I have two almost like more
Absolutely.
selfish questions that I wanted to ask that I think could other people in their journey, depending on their sophistication on it. The first is I've seen a lot of brands where for whatever they want you to sign up for, you have to sign up for the email, and then they're like, now you have to sign up for the SMS. Like you have to sign up for both to get the code.
Hmm.
What is your take on that approach? How much do you think it matters to have it be something where you need people to opt in? Do you need to people to opt into both, or how do you guys tend to think about and approach that?
I mean, I think it varies brand to brand. I think one of the most important metrics that we track is how much money are you making per email submit and how much money are you making per text submit. Because a brand that is, let's say, in the apparel space where they have product launches, and it's a younger audience, text tends to get through to them much faster than email marketing. Whereas if you have a one product store, and you're just trying to get that initial acquisition, you don't really need to send text for abandoned checkouts. It might not work as efficiently, right? So we typically track how much money you're making per sign up depending on the platform. So whether it's email, text, sometimes even push notification, right? So actually getting the opt-ins or the app downloads. And then from there, I think for us, we've tried a couple unique things. Both matter, right? The more you're able to be in front of your customer, the more likely you are being top of mind with each customer. But we've tried different techniques. Like I think one thing that's extremely underrated and most brands don't do is even having the email to SMS sign up. And so let's say a customer only signs up for email specifically, we have a module inside the email welcome one where you're letting them know, hey, if you sign up for SMS, we have an additional incentive for you. And so for us, most effective versions of this has always been, if they only sign up for email, try to get them to SMS as well. And it's kind of a laddered approach. Once you get them to SMS, you try to get them to be even more intimate. If you have an app, you try to get them to download that too. And then for us, what's worked best has always been the email and then the SMS sign up. And we try to ladder the offers as well, so that way sometimes, we'll lead with just one discount or one offer. But in some instances, we'll try to add an additional incentive for them to give us more information, especially if it's
Right.
worth it
But
having the
to kind of
SMS number, if
like
that makes sense.
because I haven't seen that too much, but the idea being like I'm just gonna make 10% plus free shipping, and then all of a sudden it's like for an extra 5%, you can sign up for this as well. Is
Hmm.
that kind of what you're talking about in terms of offer stacking?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And I think that works really, really well in stores where, they just want the initial acquisition and they're spending a lot on advertising. Um, we also have, I think, in the luxury space, obviously people don't want to be giving offers and incentives right away, and so we try to angle it more as a, join the VIP or get early access to certain things. And so it's always offer stacking, but you can change it based on the vertical you're in.
You led me right into what I wanted to chat through next, which is, I think one of the things that's interesting to me about retention is I always think to myself, and it's like anything in life, it's the same thing with even top of funnel creative, where it's like 80% of what's out there, people don't like.
Yeah.
Maybe even 90, 95.
Mhm.
But if I were to I ask everyone this question, especially when I talk to young college students, even that like they kind of want to, they think about maybe email and text, you know, style retention, and they go, no, thank you, because they've all gotten emails from people they don't want. They've all gotten spam. They've all gotten a 5-part email flow like on day 2 where someone just abuses the relationship.
Mhm.
Um, but when it's done well, it is something that can really like, I'm like, name the brands that you like getting emails from. And all of a sudden people start to think to themselves, they're like, oh, I actually like this brand, this brand, this brand. And the one thing they always have in common is the brand is giving them something, right? The email list isn't about taking, taking, taking,
Mhm.
taking. It's actually more about like giving, 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 And so when you said exclusive access, early access, discounts, these are all reasons that people obviously want to be on a list that they care to receive from you. I also think what's so interesting
Mhm.
is that 95-5 rule that people tend to talk about, which is the idea that only 5% of people are ready to buy right now. 95% of people may not be ready. I know that figure obviously changes based on the product and how expensive it is, but I just think about how important it is to do the hard work to get those other 95% of people top of mind. And when I think about the emails that I'm on, it works because it's like it is more top of mind, even just seeing it in my inbox, even if I don't read it, right? It's just like I see the name,
Yeah.
it pops back up. And so as you're looking at your emails, like how are you all thinking about providing value to people on the other side? Like what are the
Absolutely.
I'm so
Yeah.
curious what the if you're like auditing account or a checklist, like what are the things that you're like, okay, brands better be doing X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z, or like they're not even in the game.
No, that's an amazing question, and I say that because it's super interesting, right? Like, as an example, with Raindrop, if you guys have a Dr. Squatch or a native ad, when you have ads that are genuinely entertaining and you guys see how customers are super receptive to those ads, you don't launch ads that are not entertaining, right? Because as soon as there is a non-entertaining ad, the customer starts relating it to, oh, well, they had one funny ad instead of every time I see them, everything's really interesting, right? So the same applies to email, where what matters more than just the content is the relevancy. And we've seen so many brands make this mistake where they are trying to get in front of the customer constantly with, even if it's good intentions, even if it means educating them on the industry, right? Or if it means educating them on what they might be interested in, a lot of brands don't consider how often people actually want to be reached out to. And so we practice something called RFM, which is recency, frequency, and monetary value. I'm sure many marketers are familiar with that concept, but you can do that specifically for people receiving emails. And so you can see how people are receptive to email marketing. Like, are they actually consistently opening the emails, or are they just making purchases without actually having to look at any of these communications, right? And so for us, I think one of the biggest levers of success of just maintaining that customer relationship has been relevancy. And we've just seen so many brands kind of do this thing where even if they're following a rule where they're not trying to promote as much as possible and they are trying to give off value, there are customers who bought in Black Friday, Cyber Monday who genuinely don't want to buy till next Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right? And so for the rest of the year, they just keep getting messages about things that they don't really want to know about until, maybe it's another holiday season. But, where this falls short for the brand is the customer is most likely going to unsubscribe because it's not relevant to them, right? And so even with all the brands that have been working with us, whether they are trying to be extremely intentional with the messaging or attempting to not promote and just be as giving to the customer, what we found matters so much more and hold so much more weight is how they treat the customer's preferences. And so, if there's a brand listening to this, setting up things like your preference centers, actually giving them the option to change things, right? Setting up content where it's relevant to their purchase, or giving them call to actions that are relevant to them, right? Like we had this brand who's now actually one of the largest or fastest growing supplement companies in America, and the emails were extremely educational, like educating you on everything you need to know about the supplement and more. But the problem was all the CTAs were buy now, when there were so many return customers looking at it and they were like, well, I've already purchased it. And so there was no action to
So
really
then
take on the email.
how would you evolve that? Like if, where are you sending them if it's not buy now? Are you removing call to actions? Are you just allowing it to be educational? So curious, what is
Hmm.
the mindset towards, the idea of, I think we're always taught like always ask for the sale, always have the CTA. What does
Hmm.
that look like?
I think traditionally most marketers, what they do is I think they have a heavy focus on including certain audiences, right? So it's like if I'm sending this campaign, I know it goes to this group of people. But what's been interesting and what's been working really well recently is actually doing the opposite. So think about casting a really wide net and then figuring out who
Mm.
shouldn't be included, right? And that's the best way to reverse engineer what the right audiences are, because we found that a lot of brands tend to neglect things like Jacques just purchased in the last week, and we're running a monthly sale now. Jacques still going to see that email, and he's going to be like,
Right. I
what the
just
heck,
changed the
guys?
price.
I've
Yeah,
just bought it
exactly.
at full price, right? And if you're in the inclusion segments, they know Jacques is really interested in this product, and they know that Jacques loves this product as well. Again, they're still going to include you because they're just going off of your interest rather than going off of this guy
My
has
behavior.
recently purchased, so we don't want to send to him. And so essentially, what we try to do is add a lot of those behaviors within the exclusions, but then also things like buying periods. If someone has only purchased during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or during the holiday season, during Valentine's Day, maybe they are shopping for him or for her. We try to keep those in mind when we are sending out
Yeah,
different
and
campaigns.
I can only imagine the number of accounts that you all have seen, that are, I don't know how else to put it. Like I'll call it abused lists. And the reason I say that is,
Hmm.
man, I mean, I can only imagine the number of people that come to you and they're like, imagine you get people who have not emailed and sent SMSs nearly frequently enough, or the reverse where you're
Hmm.
like they're sending 5 a week and their open rates are abysmal and they just ground their retention into dust. um what are some of those like yellow and red flags that, if the people
Yeah.
listening tend to either run their own brands or they're in charge of advertising for the brands, and maybe their job isn't to run the retention, but like what would you be looking at
Hmm.
that's like yellow and red flags for like, oh boy, like it's time to take a second look at this. You're truly abusing your retention audience.
Absolutely. So I think it's interesting because there are some brands who send things like emails every single day, right? But they do it in a way where, again, going back to relevancy, they're able to do it well. And so I think when we look at every account, one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest red flags is just sending to all customers all the time or way too frequently. It comes back down again to who you're talking to in the messaging and who you're actually sending to, right? And what I will say is, as you continue to grow that out, and if there's a lot of businesses who actually rely on email being sent every single day, multiple
Mm.
times a day, even. And as you scale, I think it goes back to personalizing it for the customer, right? So how many dynamic variables I'm actually able to add. If I'm instead of saying there's a 24-hour discount, there is a discount that ends tomorrow at 11 p.m. and then actually having the dynamic date. So if it's September 30th or if it's October 1st, you're telling them it ends on October 2nd. I think one thing that is always overlooked by several brands is everyone focuses on the campaigns going out because that's what we focus on the day to day, but a lot of these automations too tend to have overlaps, right? I think even with some of the biggest brands on the D2C e-commerce side, we've seen things like sending out a abandonment email even after a customer purchased, or after a customer purchases, they're getting you know overlap of campaigns coming out with sales. So even making sure to exclude customers who have just purchased from an automation, or making sure that automations are not overlapping and so they're not receiving multiple things at multiple times, but actually using things like automations effectively, where you're able to isolate the customer, know exactly where they are in the customer journey, and only give them messaging for that, right? And so if someone's in a browse abandonment, you're making sure they are receiving no other noise apart from come back, take another look, here's why you need to take another look, and then continuing to push more recommendations. So I would say, I think with specific to, I'm
Okay.
losing my train of thought here.
Yeah, you were talking about the role of making sure you had the right exclusions so that things were not overlapping, the
Hmm.
relevance of
Yeah.
the content to the
I
audience.
mean, I mean that's pretty much it, right? Like I think it's really just about being as relevant as possible. The biggest flags are always just the fact that they are continuing to send to customers as if they don't care about the customers, right? Like they are continuing to send the same campaigns over and over again, automations that are coming out to them, even though it's not relevant to them. And so I think the brands who succeed the most, the ones with the green flags, are the ones who are very, very detail oriented around the inclusions and exclusions of customers, whether it's the automations, the campaigns, or like any sort of messaging
Yeah.
that goes out to them, and then making sure it's as
And
relevant as
so,
possible.
speaking of being dialed in, where and how do you see product launches or limited time offers being a part of all of this? Because one of the things that I've seen brands do really really well is new products or limited time offering, or even giveaways and collabs are timely reasons to be in front of people that give them value for being on the list. Like I could think about a brand right now that, um, again, it's a selfish question of we have a brand that we're working with. They're going to be launching new branding and new packaging and a new SKU here in, let's say, 5 weeks. When you're going into launching something like that, how far in advance do you start teasing and talking about it? Does that, like, do people even care? Right. Like, or do you wait until it's like a couple days out from happening, not keep people waiting? Like, how do
No.
you handle teasing, launching, and maximizing those moments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we try to plan months ahead, right? And I say this because amount of people who respond to our launches is directly correlated to how much they care. And for a lot of brands, they do a really good job of making customers care, right? The vision, the goal, what the product actually does for you. But what we found is if you go, months ahead, you can send things like campaigns asking them for feedback and what they want to see next. And when you see that come to life, you're able to, for people listening, and Jacques, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of AMP for email, but essentially AMP emails are this type of email where you can even send out forms on the email and you can submit on the email. Like there's no redirect to a website. You can actually interact with the emails, fill out surveys on the email, and
Cool.
submit it. And we've tried concepts like that where we're collecting what customers are saying. And then when we do the launch, we're letting them know, hey, based on your feedback, or we're excited for you to see this one. And it makes them much more involved and bought into the launch, instead of just, here's another product for you. Right. And so we try to do any prep for product launches months in advance, just so that way we can involve the customer a lot more from the very beginning. Right. And then as we get into product launches, I would say the main parts are 2 weeks prior to the actual product being launched. We try elements like add to your calendar, which has worked really well for us, where on the email itself, we'll have a CTA saying, I want to be notified. And then for every campaign going out after that, if it is an evergreen brand where, you still have to send weekly campaigns, there'll be banners letting them know that, hey, 10 a.m. PST, the product is coming out. Right. And so we try to do that. I would say the calendar buttons work really, really well. And then also having, opt-in buttons. So we try, opt-in text, opt-in email saying, if you want to be first to know, let us know. And then we get really high engagement rates, which helps us improve the deliverability pre-launch, right? And so we typically tend to be the only brand actually in their inbox because so many people have responded or clicked. And then if we find that there is a very low engagement for those emails, we know we need to really like spruce up the launch, add an element of surprise, or make something, um, you know, different in order to get a higher engagement out of the launch. And so I think it's very helpful for predicting what's going to happen. And whenever we see like skyrocketing click rates, we're like, order more product. Let's
That
try to get it in there.
that's so interesting to hear about how early you all would start engaging, the audiences on something new. I mean, I've been doing this 15 years, and it wouldn't occur to me to start building that momentum for it so soon. And I love the idea of including people in the feedback, in the interactions. Just out of curiosity, like percentage wise, what percentage of
Yep.
people would be considered a win? Like if I'm doing this and I see 2% of people are adding it to their calendar, 1% of people are adding it to their calendar, half a percent of people, like I know obviously it depends on the brand and everything else, but I want to make sure we level set for people with like
Yep.
what would be considered success when you're like pre-launching something? Like what are those engagements looking like? If you have a list of 50,000 people, how many people are you hoping
Yeah.
respond to a survey?
So on average, like if you're sending to a large list, I would say 2% or more is always really good, right? I think there's a lot of people who don't really engage with email. On the tech side, I would say 5% or more whenever you're asking to collect for feedback. However, what we try to do to gauge whether or not it'll even work for the brand, because there's a lot of brands that it does work for, a lot of brands that it doesn't work for. Essentially, what we try to do is do the going back to the analogy about casting the net, we try to find the most engaged audiences, the ones who care the most, the ones who are the most recent, the most frequent, and spend the most on the brand. And then we ask them to do the survey. And if we see a high response rate, like 10% plus on there, that's how we know we can go a little bit broader and then continue to go broad until we see a very low engagement
Interesting.
rate.
That's super helpful.
Hmm.
Again, to think about how you're going to engage people with relevancy. We are also headed into the Super Bowl of the retention moment.
Absolutely.
By the time this comes out, we'll be probably like what I'm trying to think, a month before Black Friday, Cyber Monday or
Oh,
so. I
wow.
think that's the October. Yeah, that will be about a month out. So what going into this season for you all is sort of the go checklist for these brands? And I'm actually going to ask a really interesting question, which is, um, one of the things we learned along the way is people tend to, we'll see it time and again, like the extended offer of like, you know, hey, Cyber Monday, and then it ends, and then like they'll be like, by popular demand, 24 more hours. Like, how do you
Yeah.
think about how, like, with your brands going into that? What are you? What's the advice you're giving to them about competing in those, especially those 4 or 5 days? And how do you think about extending offers? Do you hold firm? Does it depend? Like,
Yeah.
how do you approach Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
So I would say the brands who win are the most outrageous, right? Like they like to take
Mm,
massive swings. And so they try to go the most untraditional route possible. Last year, something we saw work really well was even founder-based emails. And this is it depends on whether or not you'd want to do this with your brand, but we saw um, some do like, oh, I created this 20% discount for the team, but I accidentally leaked it, and it's like a founder looking email, right? And so that's a very unique use case, but that's one example. But then things like the calendars, right? That's when that becomes a lot more important because if you're asking people to mark their calendars a month in advance for the biggest sale of the year, right? Like I think there's a lot of brands who only have a sale during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and so they're the ones who can take the most advantage. Building up the anticipation by saying, mark your calendar, our Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale is going to start here. And then they've already gone ahead and done it on the email. I would say checklist wise, Jacques, you're gonna make me
Yeah,
say
I was gonna
no,
say. I was
I
gonna
would
say.
probably list you a
Yeah.
million different things, but I think that the core and most essential things are, once again, pop-up form, right? Being able to capture the most amount of people, because even if they don't purchase now, they might purchase later. Having all your automations updated to reflect the new messaging. A lot of people don't do that. And it's as simple as having like a banner saying Black Friday is on right now. And then in terms of like the lead time is probably the most important part. Optimizing everything for deliverability before. So not getting too antsy. I know a lot of brands now, because of how many have optimized email marketing, have optimized ads. Some people will start their Black Friday sale as early as maybe even in October, right? But essentially, what they also do is, because they've started their holiday messaging so early, they also give less lead time for warming up the audiences, right? Asking people to reply to the email. There's so many little tips and tricks that you can use to get people to continue to engage with you, and actually getting customers to engage with you for the months of September, October matters so much leading into November, because the ISPs, and this is kind of nerd talk here, like the inbox service providers, notice you as a sender that people actually like engaging with, and then they place you at a better rate, which matters so much, especially when you get into Black Friday, because there's going to be a million people messaging each of your customers, right? But for you to actually stand out and come into the inbox, the only thing that's going to make sure you're different than your competitor is going to be how much your audience is
Man,
actually engaged with
it's
you.
what I love about this, and I know for this year, people will they'll be a month out when they're listening to this, but
Hmm.
so often we get so focused on the execution of that moment that we can lose sight of the fact that that journey a lot of times starts 3 to 6 months in advance. I mean, all of the
Hmm.
breakthrough brands that we've ever seen scale hard and do super well on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, had top of funnel brand building content running on YouTube, Meta, or television in the months leading up, and building their lists so that when they finally have that moment, not only are they getting people to buy, this is what blows my mind. It's like, whether it's Laundry Sauce or Dr. Squatch or any of these brands, where it's like you'll take someone who's never bought a soap product from you ever, and all of a sudden they'll buy $100 mega bundle because it's on sale. And I'm like, the idea that you can't replicate natural purchasing events quite like the holidays. Obviously, you see it with Mother's Day,
Yeah,
Father's Day, Valentine's Day, other gifting holidays, but man, the floodgates open on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but
absolutely.
the build up starts so much sooner than that. And it's something we've seen time and again. If there's anything that I'm really taking away from this, is I have even been thinking about retention as more so that transactional moment rather than the relationship over time to build towards that moment. And that the fun of it, like any relationship, is in the anticipation. It's in the wooing
Hmm.
and the giving of either information or even a smile or whatever that interaction is,
Yeah.
or feeling like a part of something by participating and giving back survey information. Um, I'm really taking in how that builds that relationship in advance. So, man, that's
And the beauty of it is you get to collect so much customer information during
uh
Black Friday, right? So if you are able to, and what's interesting is a lot of brands don't even have call to actions where you collect information. That if you have a customer who hasn't purchased before, fun fact, you can actually add like a profile property or tag a customer based on what they're clicking in emails. And so for us, we actually have a heavy focus on Q5. And I guess like the Q5 term has been coined a lot more recently, because there's so much noise during Q4. We like to think about, based on the information we collected about our customers or people who were potentially going to buy during Q4, who visited the site, expressed interest, how can we go and take those customers and convert them after the noise is gone, right? Like there's a lot of people who are returning products, a lot of people who didn't get what they wanted to get, or maybe they thought, my girlfriend was going to buy me a Dr. Squatch instead of, me buying it myself, and still didn't get my Dr. Squatch, so I might go back and purchase. And so I think the Q5 or the post Q4 is super underrated. You collect so much information during Q4 that you can then use moving into the next quarter. That we definitely would recommend leveraging it as much as possible. And one more tip for anyone out there who's listening, I think deliverability is so important. So postmaster.google.com will literally tell you everything you need to know about when your customers liked receiving messages from you and when they didn't. We look at that so much because I think last year we had a lot of brands who asked us to send emails. This is actually 2023. Who asked us to send emails right after Christmas to say from the brand, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah. And when we looked at Klaviyo, everything seemed fine, revenue is good. But when we look at Google Postmaster, it pretty much was telling us that we had insane unsubscribe rates and spam
Yep.
complaint rates. So people were like, screw this company for emailing me on the morning after Christmas, right? And we were able to learn so much from that because we were going directly to the source, letting us know that, hey, your customers, even though they know you care about them, you don't need to tell them that on the day
Oh my
after
gosh,
Christmas.
I'm gonna call this episode "Don't Wish People Merry Christmas."
Mhm.
'Cause, I mean, you can do everything right, and then make a mistake like that and ruin all of
Mhm.
the, like, not the goodwill, but the deliverability goodwill that you have built, right? By even just
Mhm.
trying to be nice, you could be undercutting the entire list. Tarun, if people want more from you, whether they want to follow content you're putting out or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think Instagram, LinkedIn, hopefully soon YouTube. Jacques, I'm now inspired by you, but I think for now Instagram and LinkedIn is the best way, and you can check out our site at
Awesome.
arcadymedia.com.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This is
Dude,
a pleasure.
all right, that's all that we have for you today. As always, thank you for listening and being engaged. I love hearing from you all on LinkedIn, on X, on Instagram. It's really nice to hear that you're loving this content that is helping you to grow your brands by engaging people with marketing that people love. Until next time, I'm Jacques Spitzer signing out.